to MusesRISE. Caitlyn is my guest today, who I am very, very honored to have as our first guest for this. She's been just a big inspiration in a lot of ways. She's very positive and looking to help a lot of people out all the time. But I know that even just being her, she's impacted, I'm sure, a ton of people in her life. So I'm very happy to have you here, Caitlyn. Thank you for joining me. And I can't wait to hear what you have to say for this.
I'm super excited. Thank you so much for trusting me to be your first interview. Yay! Yeah.
All right. So first off, the big thing that I wanted to kind of throw out there is I don't want this to be the norm necessarily with like what people might expect from an interview. It's more of a chat, more casual, something that if you have something to interject, feel free to interject. If you have something more to add to a story, feel free to throw it out there. So to start it off, rather than the usual, tell me about yourself. I wanted to kind of start off with, describe to me who you are.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a loaded question. I love it. I think for me, when I'm looking at who I am, I would divide that into three sort of archetypes. I am an entertainer, I am a warrior, and I am an entrepreneur. So when it comes to entertaining, not just, being on stage is just one part of entertainment, right? I think that what entertainers do at the very base level of things is make people feel. So by you being something, showing up as something, whether that's yourself, whether that's you putting on a face for the world, whether, whatever that is, you're eliciting that reaction from people, right? You're allowing them to feel. And so I am someone that really likes to get people to not only think, but to really feel better about themselves, of course, is one of the things, but I also enjoy the on stage aspect of making people feel, a myriad of emotions. And when it comes to being a warrior, I am someone that is very on fire for defending people. I hate injustice. I hate there's so much negativity and there's so much trash in the world, right? And I feel like there's so much unfair behavior and hurt and sadness. And it's just that sort of stuff, instead of making me feel horribly and making me feel sad and woe is me, it kind of lights a fire under my butt and makes me want to help and to defend and to be someone that stands next to someone and fights with them instead of someone that just watches from afar. And that goes into my friendships. That goes into people that I meet at work, out in the world. I am the first one to, when someone won't stand up for themselves, I'm the first one, maybe to a fault, to be like, oh, absolutely not. That's, we're not going to do it like that. Like I am on fire as a warrior personality to help, as much as I possibly can and in the best way possible. And then as something new that I've started, I am an entrepreneur. And although being an entrepreneur is something that you do, I've started my own business with the Valley Collective with life coaching for women. I think that being an entrepreneur, it takes a certain kind of person to want to work for themselves. And the value I find in working for myself is that I can create how I want to help. I can create how I want to entertain. I can create how I want to defend. I get to choose and make those decisions for myself. And while I still am someone that absolutely has a corporate job, I work at Walt Disney World. I work for a couple of vacation planning companies in Orlando. I've worked plenty of jobs for other people. I have found that what I enjoy most is creating something for myself. So that's why I really appreciate what you're doing with MusesRISE. You call it a side project, but to me, it's a passion project, right? It's something that you created for yourself to help other people. And that's throughout my life to get to where I am now. There have been so many different instances that have just led me to this place of really just wanting to create something for myself. So that's who I am.
I love it. Yeah, definitely explained a lot. And I feel like it definitely, just from knowing you through social media, that is exactly what I can see. And our conversations through messages and, the random videos that you send, because it's easier than texting it all out. It definitely is exactly what I picture. And so I think that is a perfect explanation of who you are and, why I have you here in the first place.
Thank you so much.
So yeah. So I know you explained a little bit of it, but to explain how you got here is another aspect of who you are as well. So like, what do you see as the main moments or main events or influences that really brought you where you are right now?
Yeah, another really great question. You say you're not good at interviewing, and then you ask these questions, and I'm like, dang, I got to really think about that. So the first thing I think, if you take it all the way back, when I was young, I was born with an eye disease called strabismus. And hearing the stories from my parents are kind of funny, but when I was learning to walk, I would literally run face first into walls. I would run into furniture. And they were like, what the heck is wrong with this kid? And I also talked before I could walk. So I was very vocal in, just talking about my experiences. So they're like, what's wrong with her? She can talk just fine. She's walking fine, but why is she? So they take me to an eye doctor, find out, oh, she needs these massive 1980s sort of bifocal lenses. And my mom says she remembers taking me outside for the first time. And I was like, the trees have leaves. Like, I couldn't believe that the trees weren't just blobs of green. Like, oh, that's what a leaf is. That's what you're talking about. So the doctors told my parents that something that would help me with my motor skills, with my depth perception, would be to put me into ballet and gymnastics. And that's kind of where my entire life went. Excuse me, not only with entertaining, of course, performing, but I quickly found such a passion for dance and for music and for making people feel happy just by me doing what lit myself up. And I think even though I was young, I realized very quickly that by doing something, it was really cool to know that doing something that I loved brought joy to other people. And I was although I probably couldn't have put it into words when I was, 5, 6, 7 years old, that's what I think I loved most about performing and being on stage and being in gymnastics competitions and all of those things. Sure, something what you would call bad, being born with an eye disease might have looked like, oh no, our poor kid, she has to wear these ridiculous glasses and who knows, what'll ever happen. It corrected itself. I now have 20/20 vision. Thank you, Lord. I got really lucky. But I think the gymnastics and the dance really showed me that when you do something that you love and you shine in that aspect, it's going to create good feelings for other people. So that was something that really affected me in a big way. And then I think also when we were younger, my dad has a job where we moved around a lot. And so at one point I had lived in like 13 different homes and we were just constantly moving. I lived in New York, New Jersey, Texas, Colorado, West Virginia. I moved to Illinois and lived in Chicago for a while. I lived in Montreal. I lived and performed on a cruise ship for a while. And then I finally landed in Orlando, which has been my home for the last 10 years. But through moving so much as a child, I never got to have those childhood friends that you grow up next to for your entire life. And you're like, oh, that was my neighbor, or, oh, that was my best friend from first grade. Like, I went to different schools almost every year. I was homeschooled for a while. I jumped around. The longest time I was anywhere actually was in West Virginia. But funnily enough, it doesn't really feel like my home. Florida now kind of feels like my home. But through moving around so much, I got to see so many different types of people and so many different cultures and people from different backgrounds. And I got to meet the wealthiest of the wealthy. And I got to meet people. I went to school in an inner city school for a while. And I was the odd man out, where I was the only white girl in my class. I was the only one that spoke English as my first language. So it was definitely, when you're little, you're so accepting. That's what I love so much about kids. Like, to me, that's just the way it was, and it was okay. And what I didn't realize until later in my life is that all of that moving around, although it might have seemed stressful or a lot at the time, what it teaches you is that it teaches you to accept everyone and to not put labels on people just because of what they look like, where they come from, or their background, or what their parents do, or what they do, or, it just taught me to really look into someone's soul beyond what they're showing on the outside. It also allowed me to meet people really easily. I don't have a problem walking up to someone and being like, "Hi, I'm Caitlyn, who are you?" But that's because I had to do that, right? I grew up. So you can, in life, I think you can look at things in a way of saying, well, this experience, moving around so much as a child, that must have been so horrible, constantly never having any friends, never having any constant, baseline growing up, you moved so much. Yes, but you can also flip it around and say, look at all the people I got to meet. Look at all the things I got to see, the experiences I got to have. And ultimately, I think that shaped who I am now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you're saying, that there are two sides to that coin, and you can, choose to look at the side of, oh my gosh, that was awful. How could you, really get through that? But you can also look at it as, wow, that was such an amazing experience. I mean, my parents, we lived in the same house from when I was 2 until, my parents are still living in that house. So once I moved to went to college and was living there and everything, that was really the first time I was living elsewhere. And I, did grow up with that same group of people. I mean, I look at through, the Facebook saying, oh, it's so-and-so's birthday today, say happy birthday or whatever, send them a message. I always try to make sure to send that happy birthday. For some people, it's like, oh, well, this person doesn't, send any kind of comment or, respond in any way otherwise except a happy birthday. But to me, I look at it as, on my birthday, I always am like, I have my family and, maybe my coworkers saying happy birthday, or, the real close good friend that I've had for a long time. But there's something nice about seeing a post, or like even a simple HBD, or, whatever it is, coming from somebody who you did know from, decades ago or something like that. So it just like that, there's two sides to how you view it, and everybody's going to view it differently. But I can tell there are certain people that are like, oh my gosh, this guy is, I haven't seen him in, 20 years and he's saying happy birthday. That's kind of cool. And then you have the people that don't even react to it, and that's a personal choice. But for me, I like to put myself out there just because I want to make sure that person feels, I do remember you. I do know you. I'm have this connection with you. So for you, I'm sure you still have those memories of, even, if somebody who you may have only known for a very short time, there's still some sort of impact that person had on you. And that's what a muse can be. And so I think that's a perfect example of, a very different situation from what a lot of people may have experienced. Sure. So I definitely think that is a great way to say how you became who you are. And I love hearing that, dance and gymnastics and performing really helped you get to where you are and become the person you are. My wife is, a dancer. Her sister was a dancer. And it's still, even though they haven't danced since college or whatever, like in a professional or, a active sense, they still are impacted by all those memories that are created, and still remember all these dances and like the entire dance from when they were, 10 years old, and they're watching a video or hearing the music, and they all of a sudden start bursting out into the dance in the middle of walking down the road or whatever. So yeah, it definitely, so much of it creates who you are. And I think that's perfect to kind of get that illustration of, how you started out with not necessarily the greatest diagnosis or the greatest idea of what might happen for your future. But your parents really seemed like they were wanting to make sure that they did everything that they could to help you get the best out of your life. And so I think that's great to hear that. My son, he wears glasses, and it's because of astigmatism that he has in both eyes that, he can see, but he just sees it a little bit differently than anybody else would. But everybody always is complimenting his glasses and say how cool they are. And it's a part of him. And like now when he takes them off and he's got them, doesn't have them on, we're always like, who is this kid? Oh yeah, that's my son. But yeah, it can really be a part of who you are. And, you don't look at the negative side of it. That's what we try and teach him. And that's what I'm trying to say with all of this is, try your best to gravitate more towards the positive of things. So I appreciate that explanation. That was perfect. And on the sense of, like I said, there can be just a person that no matter how small the interaction, it can have a profound impact on who you are. Can you recall a person or a moment where someone unknowingly impacted your life, whether it was just for a day or something bigger than that? Can you recall that person or that moment, and how did it impact the rest of, your journey up until now?
Yeah. So I'm going to be honest. When I read this question, when I was thinking about it, I had a little bit of a hard time at first thinking about it, because I've had people that are influential, but if I think down, it's a lot harder to say, oh, let me think down and let me pare this down to one moment. And I came up with one, and I kept thinking, no, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. And what I realized is that not only is it good enough, but it's probably the best example that I could ever give ever. So in college, I went to school for musical theater, and I had a really, really rough college experience. Starting in, I would say, my first year of college, my parents were parents that loved me very much and cared very much, but did the best they could. They parented the best that they could. And in that, they wanted to make sure that we were we were good, right? You get good grades, you do good things, you show up dressed well, you do this, you do that. So it became very much a situation where I felt like I had to measure up to the standards of other people. And through that, also, I'm sure that, your wife could tell you, in the dancing community, I danced at a professional theater. So Pittsburgh Ballet Theater is where I went to ballet when I was in high school. And I was actually taken out of class early to drive the hour and a half from my little town in West Virginia to go to Pittsburgh Ballet Theater to go to class every single day. So I would get out of school at 2 so that my mom could pick me up and take me all the way up there for dance. So being in that professional ballerina sort of community, it's kind of a thing. Everybody knows it. The eating disorder came on real quick. And the eating disorders became something that I could control and something that I had power over that wasn't put on me by my family. And so in college, it got pretty intense because I led this very much like, no, you can't go to the parties because that's bad and that's not what we do. I don't want my daughter doing that. No, you can't do this because that's not what we do. And so I went psycho in college. I went crazy because it was the first time that I'd ever had any type of someone not telling me what I could and could not wear, someone not telling me what I could and could not eat or drink. I didn't drink until I got to college. I never had this. I hear people talking about experiencing alcohol in high school. I'm like, that must have been cool. I was driving to and from a professional ballet theater and doing my homework in the car and doing what I was told, So I finally had this experience in college where I was just like busting out, like, I'm free, I can do anything. And I went psychotic. All right. So along with the eating disorders came anxiety. And then came the depression. And it got so bad to the point that I had to be taken out of school for a little bit. I couldn't do my midterms. The depression was really bad. I ended up being suicidal. And when I came to my parents with this, My mother's answer was, no daughter of mine is going to see a psychologist. So instead of hearing what I was saying and assisting me with the help that I needed, she was very worried, I think, at that time, what it looked like to the outside world. And I don't hold anything over her for doing that, but that just drove everything even further. And so what that brings me to is the instance that actually changed me was I was in a musical theater acting class, and there was a teacher that everyone was frightened of beyond belief. Her name was Lori. And she was the woman that if you were caught eating in her class, it was close to like Easter break one time, and there was a kid in the back of the class opening up a container of Peeps, the marshmallow Peeps. And she heard it and she like slams her hand down. She's like, who's eating in my class? And we're all like, no. She walks back, she takes a Peep, she bites the head off, rips it and sticks it to the wall and says, no eating in my class. And you're like, okay, Lori, like she was just not a nice lady. But we ended up having these end of the year acting sort of evaluations, right? And at the time, I'm horribly anorexic, I'm bulimic, I'm self-harming, I'm depressed, I'm just not in a good space. But because of what I had learned at home, nobody knew on the outside because everything was all perfect and happy and I'm totally fine. And so in my acting evaluation, she looks at me and she says very seriously, I just don't think you're ever going to be anything in life except for a beauty queen. And I was like, and it broke me because here I am, focusing so much on my outside appearance and what people saw. But she saw right through it. And what I think she was trying to say was, if you can't dig down into who you are and the stories that you're going through and the experiences that you're having, and you can't show that real you to people, you will never, what will you accomplish in life? Because all you are is a shell right now. And so although my frail mind at that time heard her say that and was just so disgusted and couldn't believe that a professor at college, these people that are supposed to be bringing you up and filling you with all of this inspiration to go out there and get jobs and be excited, when that was my evaluation, was you're never going to become anything more than a beauty queen, it broke me. But looking back at it now, I think that it was probably one of the best things anybody could have ever said to me, because although I didn't realize it then, what I eventually realized is that unless you show your true self to people, it doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. Unless you show your true self to people, you're never going to affect anyone's life in a positive way. You're not going to lead a happy life. There is so much power in showing up as yourself, as vulnerable, real, raw you. And so I think especially with social media now, it's so hard because we see all of these filtered, beautiful images and people are using filters on their faces. I mean, I don't want to say I'm guilty of it because I like using the occasional filter because why not? It makes me feel good. Like, bless. If I'm going to feel good, I'm going to feel good. But now I'm doing it in a way that I believe is a bit more healthy or healthier rather. And it allows, that experience allowed me to see that life is so much more than what people can see of me on the outside, right? Especially with having a job where you work at Walt Disney World. I think a lot of people expect me to be one way because they see certain images or videos of me performing and they think, oh, she must be that kind of person because this is what she looks like. When in reality, like, that's just a chick in a wig, guys. Like, the real girl is the one that's sitting in front of you right now, So although Professor Lori, bless her, I wonder what she's doing now, that angry woman, although she tore me down with that comment, what she really did was lit a fire under me to show people who I really am, to stop the act, stop the bullshit, stop the, this is what you see. Like, now what you see is what you get. Like, yes, authentic me loves to curl her hair. Okay. Authentic me likes to wear mascara. Okay. But there's so much more than what people see. And Lori taught me that if I don't show that to people, I will be nothing. I will have no impact. There will be no true transformation in anyone that I meet. And I won't have any type of fulfillment in my own heart. right? And that's what we're all out for in the end, right? Is to live a fulfilled, happy existence.
Okay. So yeah, it definitely is a good example of even something that I don't even, initially think of with the way people can impact you in a positive way. Because for me, like with this project and everything, I'm always trying to remind people, be friendly, be kind, be uplifting, be positive. But it doesn't necessarily mean that those negative moments that initially really kind of upset you and hurt you to your core can't have a positive impact on the rest of your life. So, while I'm not going to recommend to people go out there and tell them you're terrible and you can't do this, you're never going to be anything more. Like, no, don't go out and do that. But think about those moments in your life in the past where you were hurt, but that it did change you and change your outlook of how to proceed with the rest of your life, and kind of think of that and make that a positive memory instead of that negativity that's kind of fueling it. And it'll help to, like, even for me, I'm going to go and think back to certain things, I'm sure, and kind of reassess it, because I do have that depression. I do have that anxiety that I deal with as well. And no, it's not fun. And yes, it can be very easy to spiral down and only hear the negative side of something or the negative tone in something, but it can have that very profound positive impact in the long run, because it kind of, like you said, it lights a fire under you and kind of revives you or inspires you in a different way and can expand your world. And yes, I'm using all of these different words for rise. Yes. So I appreciate you sharing that story, because that in turn is inspiring me to look at my memories and my interactions as well and kind of go back and think about them in a different way. So
also, Lori might have not said things in the most uplifting, loving, positive way. And I believe hardcore in delivering true information to, it's like she knew me, right? I was her student. She wasn't going to walk up to somebody on the street and say, screw you, you're never going to become anything. She knew me. She had me in a class for 2 years. She knew what was going on. I'm sure as an adult, she saw way more than I actually realized that she saw, and so she had that relationship already with me. And though she did not deliver the information in a way that I find palatable, what I think, if I went back and asked her now, what I think she was probably trying to say is exactly what I gained from, she could have said it in a lot more graceful way. But what I think she wanted to say was, hey, there's so much more to you than what you're showing to everyone. And I think that if you showed yourself more to people, that you would be successful. So there's always a way to word something or to take criticism in a way that, can turn it around for you in your mind and make it not so much of, I'm never going to become anything, but okay, what she sees as beauty queen, is that what everyone else sees? Because that's not me. Mm-hmm. So let me do some self-work and realize that she saw more to me than I saw.
Exactly. Yeah. I definitely agree with that. It doesn't, just because something is delivered in a very blunt or in some times harsh way, it doesn't necessarily mean that the intention behind it is to solely hurt. It's kind of to help break down that barrier that other people may be saying, oh well, you're thinking it or saying in their mind, like, oh, if she isn't more than that, and it doesn't have more emotion behind it than just what she's showing, then there's no way she's going to succeed. Like, that can be something in somebody's mind, or they could be saying something that does reflect it, but it's not going to have that impact. So yeah, I completely understand what you're saying, that in that moment, the only way that you were going to be able to kind of break that barrier and kind of get through and start growing more is to kind of have that crack in the pavement that allows the flower to grow through, and like that kind of a moment. So that was her kind of creating that crack for you.
Yep.
So yeah. If she was sitting here and having this conversation with you, what would you say to her?
I'd be hiding under my table. Okay. She was a terrifying woman. No. It's interesting because now as an adult and as someone who after college went so hardcore into self-discovery and self-help, and I went through hours of therapy. I have read hundreds of books. You know, I've always been interested in psychology. In college, when they gave us electives, instead of taking like painting, I was like, can I do psych 1 and 2? And they're like, okay, weirdo. Yes, but okay. So that was, you know, me. I've always been interested in it. But I think now, if she were sitting here knowing what I know now, I would be so incredibly not only thankful that she said that to me, but I used to look at her as this angry, mean, horrible woman. And now what I really see of her is that she was sad and she was lonely and she didn't know how to translate those emotions. And so because of that, she led with anger and, you know, resistance. And I mean, anger was her theme. And so I think now what I would say to her is that, like, I see you and I understand your struggles and it's okay. You know, like, it's okay to be vulnerable. In vulnerability, we find strength. And the more vulnerable you are and the more you know yourself and can stand by who you are and what you think, and the more you can be vulnerable with that, the more people fall in love with you. The more people are attracted to you, because we're all broken. We've all experienced ups and downs. And I just would want her to know that although her anger made me feel like crap at the time, thank you, because it allowed me to become who I am now. And it allowed me to help the people that I help now. And I would also want her to know that it's okay. I don't hold any type of resentment over that. In fact, it's the opposite. You know, and I hope wherever she is, I'm going to actually look her up now that we've had this conversation. I'm going to get online.
That was my recommendation. And that's kind of where I go with this is, you know, it's something to, when I started the MusesRISE stuff and, you know, was doing my own videos, I'm just kind of talking to the camera. I told stories of, you know, my muses and to try and help explain what the concept behind the revive, inspire, share, expand concepts are of how a muse can impact people. And I shared those stories and made sure that if I was able to, I connected that person, like commented and made sure that they were aware that they were part of this and wanted to share it with them. And in doing that, the person who inspired me was then inspired, and, you know, I became a muse for them again. And so that is kind of where I want this to go, and where I envision this really improving any number of people's lives. Even if it only ends up improving one person, I feel like it makes a difference for the world. A tiny ripple, you know, just a little ripple can grow and grow and grow. And that's really what we have to remember, is that yelling at somebody because they cut in line in front of you, or, you know, because they're taking too long, because they're trying to find change or whatever, all that's going to do is upset that person, as well as probably a couple other people around you, and kind of turn them into a negative mindset. And, you know, then it's going to ripple out. They're going to in turn yell at somebody else, whether it be a family member, a friend, a coworker, a stranger on the street. And all of that negativity just grows and grows and grows. Whereas if you have a nickel in your pocket and you hand that over for them, that's going to be a positive change. The person at the cashier is going to see that, and they'll be like, oh, don't worry about that 5 cents. I'll take care of it for the next person. Or, you know, you don't know anybody's story. So doing a very small positive reaction can have a huge ripple. So for you to kind of think about this moment and think, wow, this person really did have a positive impact on me, even though the moment may not have been, this big thing, or may not have been a positive moment in that instance, it did have a profound positive impact on me. And it's a part of who I am now. Going and telling that person that they had that positive impact, even though they have no idea that they had that specific of an impact from something that even they probably, she might have gone home and said, wow, I was pretty harsh, but that's what it is. That fleeting thought in their mind can kind of be there, but they don't know how it impacted you. I mean, if you tell them, they'll know, and they'll be able to kind of grow from that and realize, wow, okay, so I did have a profound impact. And yeah, maybe I could have been a little bit better with my delivery, but this little thing can really have a big impact. So it's definitely something I encourage you to do, is, look her up and see if you can, send her a message and just be like, hey, just wanted to let you know this moment really changed me, and for the better. And, I appreciate having you as a person in my life, and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've actually never thought until today, until I started thinking of those questions, I never would have thought it's almost like I feel like I need to write her a thank you note, and put some pictures in there of me freaking thriving in my life and being like, yeah, girl, like, this is where you saw this sad, depressed, eating disorder ridden, self-harming, like sad
beauty
girl,
queen. Yeah.
Beauty queen. Exactly. But like, look at me now, and like, thank you for that. And I'm sure I don't really think about that a lot. I try to send thank you notes. One of my first love languages is words of affirmation. And I think, just like you were talking about with saying happy birthday, like sometimes the smallest little action, what would it take me to write a thank you note? 15 minutes, like 15 minutes out of my life could change her entire trajectory. How long did it take her to say that to me? A second? How long has it impacted me? I'm no spring chicken. Like, college was a long time ago, but I still remember it now. Yep. So I think that's beautiful with what you're doing, and to make sure that you let those people who really impacted you, let them know.
Yeah. So just to finish out this part of it, how do you feel? Do you feel that she revived, inspired, shared, expand? Which do you feel really applies to that kind of moment?
Inspired, for sure. In the way that I am the kind of person that if you tell me I can't do something, not only am I going to do it, but I'm going to do it 10 times harder than you told me I couldn't do it. I am lit up by people saying you can't. I'm like, oh, that's so cute. Watch.
I'm going to say it probably as partly a redhead thing as well, because my wife is the exact same way. So as my son. So
yep. Yeah. So she definitely, in that way, she inspired me to become more than what people saw on the outside, and definitely expanded, because at that time I was so worried about what people thought, what others thought. But what I didn't realize is that the love of what people thought needed to expand into my heart. What do I think? How do I feel about myself?
That was exactly what I was going to say, is it really expanded your view on what you were doing. So
expanded view on me. So for that, I'm really thankful. And she, in terms of reviving, it's almost like she was able to revive me, who I am in my soul, that had been washed away by all of the negativity and all of the things that I had been through. And she jump-started the new me. She jump-started the person that you see now.
Love that. Love hearing that. So to wrap it up, I think we can kind of touch on how you are saying you want to be out there to help people in the world and to kind of be that support for anybody that needs it. And I think that's great. I absolutely support that. So to wrap up, if someone is out there feeling like they're just a drop in the ocean, like they don't matter, what would you say to them?
Ooh, this is such a beautiful question. It's so good. First, I would say, have you ever looked at a drop of water under a microscope, especially a drop of ocean water under a microscope? What you see of someone and what you see of yourself is so small in comparison to what is actually there if you really look deeper. And of course, someone might say, oh, that's only a drop and that's the whole ocean. But to the mitochondria and the bacteria and the entire living ecosystem in that one teeny tiny drop, that's the entire world, right? So although you might feel like you're so small, I think that's because you might be looking more at the outside world than you are looking in. And the more you can look at the incredible, wonderful things about yourself, the things that make you proud. And I know a lot of us, especially on our down days, and for me, when I was, severely depressed, there was nothing good that I could see. But all it takes is doing one little nice thing, be it for yourself, be it for someone else. And you will realize so quickly that you're not just a drop. You are you are the world, right? Like a drop goes into the ocean and becomes one with the entire ocean. Like try to find that drop again, right? Like yep. It's huge. It expands. It's able to give that life to so much more. And so if you're feeling small, if you're feeling like you don't matter, I would want people to realize that, not only do you matter, but look inside and really find those things that make you matter to yourself and start there. And then worry about what other people think, because honestly, whatever people think doesn't matter, right? They're not going to sleep with you at the end of the night in your brain. It's what you think. It's what you think of yourself. So at the end of the day, if you're feeling small, just remind yourself, like, the chances of you being born are 1 in 7 freaking right? Like the chances of that sperm and that egg joining together to make your specific incarnation of your soul this time around, like, what? Like you are incredible. You are a source of light and love. And it is a miracle that you're even on this earth to begin with. So stop focusing so much on the outside and start looking more at what you value about yourself on the inside.
That's great. Yeah. So I appreciate, as I said before, I appreciate you taking the time to chat a little bit. And I really think there were some great points that you had, and it was wonderful hearing the inspiration that you've had, and where you came on your journey, and finding out more about you. So I appreciate you opening up and sharing that with whoever may see this. I may have a small following at this point, or very minimal, but at this point, I definitely think that even just this story alone is incredible and can really impact a lot of people. So like I said before, even if it's just one person, that's still one person that's going to impact so many more, and it can have just such a profound effect. So thank you for your time. And I will hopefully continue on with this series and have some more people to chat with and get some different views of where they came from in the world and where they are and what has brought them there. So thank you for being the first. Thank you for being the input for this and kind of the start to it all. And I look forward to, getting to know you more as we progress in friendship and everything like that. So thank you.
So much. Thank you for having me here. And thank you for taking the initiative to do something like this. The world needs more this.
Yeah, it's definitely, like you said, a passion project that I I have my inspirations and everything like that, but that's a whole other episode that I'll, touch on at that point. But thank you for your time.
Of course.
Yeah. And yes. I don't know how to end this, so I'm just going to say, tune in the future. Yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Tune in the future for more interviews and more videos and opportunities to follow along. So make sure to subscribe and follow on YouTube, Instagram, social media, all of that kind of stuff. I'll have links down in the description, and we'll go from there. Thanks.
Awesome.
Have a good one.
Thank you so much. Bye.